Excellent!
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Paul's Hardware. This is Probing Paul, episode number 16. This is my monthly Q&A series that I do every month. That's what makes it monthly. And if you're interested in going back into the history, there's a playlist for you where you can go back and look at the previous episodes. All the questions from today are taken from the comment section from last week's video, so let's dive right into it. First question here from Stephen Bach. Hey, Paul, what would be the best CPU and graphics card setup for a family room 65-inch 4K TV build? I feel like there's been more interest in like the family room setup, the gaming setup for 4K TVs, since those are becoming a lot more affordable. So it might surprise you given a lot of the negative response to the recent launch of Intel's X299 platform, but your answer is going to be this CPU right here, which is the 7740X. As well as an X299 motherboard, something like one of these, and overclock the 7740X as much as you can. You'll probably be able to get 5 to 5.1 gigahertz out of it if you're going with a decent air cooling setup, maybe even a little bit more if you go with an all-in-one. However, I like to stay away from those for the living room setups just because they can make a little bit more noise depending on the pump and everything like that. Pair this with a GeForce GTX 1080 Ti of any variety from any of NVIDIA's add-in board partners, and that will give you the best CPU and graphics combination, because right now clock speed is still king when it comes to graphics performance, and the 7700K or the 7740X is basically the best chip for pure gaming out there right now. Now, all that said, you're going to pay an extra $100 or so premium for the motherboard with an X299 configuration, so strongly consider just going with the 7700K. You won't be able to overclock it quite as much, but you'll invest a lot less in the platform. Of course, you got options beyond that too. You can look at Ryzen and that kind of thing, but you are going to see a little bit of trailing off in the actual gaming performance, especially if you're pairing it with a high-end graphics card like a 1080 Ti. But for 4K, you should by and large be just fine. So I'd say consider those options, but you asked for what's best, and best right now is still going to be the options on the Intel side. Thank you for that question, though, Stephen. Let's move on to question 2 from Cody Espinoza. Hey, Paul, I'm looking to upgrade my 1080p 60Hz monitor. Had my eye on the Asus PG279Q because I hear that high refresh rate is one of those things you just don't come back from. I would agree with that, Cody. My question is, should I go for this or wait or go for 4K or ultra-wide for that matter? I have a GTX 970, but I'm looking to upgrade in the next few months. Cody, I hope when you do upgrade, the prices have dropped at least a little bit for the GPUs, because right now they're all really overpriced. More on that with another question, though, that I'll be answering. Here's that Asus monitor, though, the ROG Swift PG279Q. It is an absolutely gorgeous monitor. G-Sync, high refresh rate, IPS panel, so it's got really good color reproduction, 2560 by 1440. I think this is a great option for you if you're looking to spend around $700 to $800 on a monitor. There's a few reasons for that. One, it's got that kind of trifecta of stuff that you want for gaming, high refresh rates, IPS is great for color depth, and then of course G-Sync, some variable refresh rate technology, whether it's G-Sync with an NVIDIA graphics card, whether it's FreeSync with an AMD graphics card. You're going to want that for gaming if you're moving up to the next level beyond 1080-60. Another reason this is a good choice for you is you won't need quite as much graphics horsepower to push 2560 by 1440 versus 4K. In fact, quite a bit less. For 4K, you really need to be investing in the highest end graphics cards right now. I'd say upgrading to a GTX 1070 for you would be a perfect choice, going from your 970 with a monitor like this. And then, of course, the other thing to consider is going to be ultra-wide. If you want G-Sync with a 3440 by 1440 ultra-wide, though, there's quite a big price hike from there. You're probably going to have to pay over $1,000 for that. So all these things considered, Cody, I think this monitor is actually a great choice for you. And I hope if and when you actually get it, you enjoy it a lot, because I certainly think you will. Next up is Milan Mrdjenovic. Milan Mrdjenovic. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Hey, Paul, I'm a digital artist working mainly in programs like Photoshop. I also do some 3D modeling, and I'm thinking about getting a new PC in the near future. Would you suggest Ryzen 1700X or an Intel 7700K for such a build? So, whereas with the first question, I wholeheartedly endorsed Intel's Skylake or Kaby Lake architecture. For your choice, you definitely want to go with that Ryzen 1700X. anytime you're dealing with heavily multi-threaded applications, especially ones that can take advantage of threads beyond 2 or 4 cores, which games have a harder time dealing with, but enterprise or digital artistry software tends to do a much better job at. Especially rendering 3D models, you will definitely appreciate the additional cores and threads you get with the 1700X compared to the 7700K. Klaus Matthews asks, my parents will be in need of an upgrade from our old VHS player to something that plays DVDs in a very tight form factor. Should I get them a console, or should I attempt to make them a cheap HTPC in the same range? This is an interesting question, not least because of the fact that your parents are already using a VHS player, but if you want to get them into the next generation, I would consider, if you're going to go potentially 4K in the future, something like the Xbox One S. It has a 4K Blu-ray player, and that would allow you to get all the way up from VHS resolution to 4K, which would be a crazy jump. If you don't have a 4K television and you're just doing 1080, you're probably going to be fine with DVDs and Blu-rays, in which case I don't think an HTPC would be quite as practical in the circumstances. They're a little bit more complicated. I would go either with a dedicated Blu-ray player, which you can purchase, and they're typically very small, and they're also a lot easier for parents who just are used to using a remote control can work with. Or if you do want to go with a computer route, maybe consider even something like an old laptop that has an HDMI out, that has an optical drive in it. That might be a simple and quiet and low-profile solution for you to get your parents up and running. But I hope you can soon. I sure hope that they appreciate the increased resolution jumping up from VHS. James Wood asked a question that actually got a couple really good responses, and actually quite a few of my questions that people ask on this video get really good responses. So I wanted to give a shout out to any of you guys who are not trolling, but just perusing the comments and actually giving good answers. But anyway, James Wood's question was, hey Paul, I built a PC this past year with a Samsung 850 EVO 250 gig. I've been using it a lot more than I originally thought, so I'm worried about NAND endurance and that maybe the SSD won't hold up as long as planned. Is there a way to monitor the remaining endurance on the SSD? And just to show you guys, this is the Samsung 850 EVO right here. 250 gig version only costs about $100 right now. Really good drive, very solid. It uses 3D NAND. And the answers to the question, first from John Totten. Thanks, John, for chiming in. Download the Samsung Magician software. Definitely you want to get that to go along with the 850 EVO. You can set it up to use rapid mode, which does some caching on your memory, which makes the drive even faster, and it will give you performance and reliability statistics. It also shows you how much you've written to the drive overall, and you'll probably find that you're way under what it actually is. John Doe points out here it's got a 5-year, 75 terabytes written warranty. So if you take 75 terabytes, 1,000 gigs per terabyte, that's 75,000 terabytes. If you divide that by the number of days in 5 years, it ends up being about 40 or 41 gigabytes written per day, which is possible. I mean, if you're copying a lot of video footage or something like that, I regularly shoot a video and then have 40 to 60 gigs that I might drop onto something, but I don't do that every day. There's a pretty slim chance that you do too. So download that software, get some actual stats on the drive, and also bear in mind that even if the NAND does wear out, if it gets past the point where it can't be program erased anymore, it will go to what is known as steady state. It can still be read, so you can still copy the data off of it. You just can't write to it anymore. In my experience though, when it comes to SSDs dying, it's not the NAND that wears out, it's the controller. But I believe with your controller and the 850 EVO, that's not much of an issue. Next question from Mui Copyright. Here's a question for you. G4560 with a Z270 motherboard now, and next year get an unlocked i7, or now just get the G4560 with a regular motherboard, and by regular I assume you mean non-overclockable, so one of the budget chipsets like a B150 or B250. He also says he doesn't care about AMD, so I'm going to skip over any Ryzen recommendations that I might have given. Here's a G4560. It's popular because it's Kaby Lake architecture. It's low priced, although right now it seems kind of overpriced. You should be able to find this for $70. This is expensive on Amazon right now, so maybe search around and find a better price for it. But it's dual core with hyper-threading, and it's a great entry-level chip. But again, you're not going to be able to overclock on an inexpensive motherboard. You can't overclock that Pentium chip anyway. But I would say take a look at Z170 motherboards that are out there on the market, and definitely I would say probably go for the upgrade path. Now, if you get a Z170 motherboard, it might not out of the box be compatible with that processor, so maybe consider something like an Asus board that has USB BIOS flashback, or Gigabyte with their, I forget what they call it, but it's basically the same thing as USB BIOS flashback. That will allow you to update your BIOS without needing a processor or memory installed. Other than that, you might be able to find a Z170 board that says it's updated for Kaby Lake and it should be compatible out of the box. But you can find those really cheap. I mean, there's Z170 boards. I mean, a lot of these are open box on Newegg, but down in the $70, $80, $90 price range. I might consider going more towards the, say, $100-ish to $120 price. Look for low-end Z270 boards, or look for a good deal on a last-gen Z170 board. And with the Z170 board, even if you get like a 7700K or 7600K in the future, as long as the BIOS is updated so the Kaby Lake support is there, you will be able to overclock with Z170 or Z270. So I think that would be a good option for you, and it would allow you to get a lot more life out of that system. Also, if you install Windows on the system with the motherboard, you're going to go through a much more painful upgrade process, swapping the motherboard out, and you have to redo Windows and all that, and you might lose your license too. So that's also something to consider. A couple more questions left. This one's from Tortuga. Paul, I got swept away in the rising Radeon RX prices due to mining. Cryptocurrency mining, Ethereum mostly is what's going on right now. That's causing all of the Radeon GPUs to be sold out and or extremely overpriced. He says, I sold my RX 470 for a cool $350 on eBay. Went to go buy a GTX 1070 and found the 1070s are in the high $400 range or even $500 plus. Is it worth paying $500 for an aging 1070 or wait for Vega? Now, waiting right now is just going to be a challenge because there's no telling how long this current bubble with the prices of certain cryptocurrencies like Ethereum is going to last, and how long it's going to be a viable choice to use gaming GPUs to mine it. Now, you're in a situation where if you had sold your 470 and immediately bought the 1070, you probably would have been okay. But now that all the Radeon cards are sold out, people are starting to use NVIDIA cards to mine as well. They're not quite as efficient at it, but they still can get the job done. Now, we talked about this a little bit on the live show yesterday and actually got some feedback from people that the higher end GPUs in NVIDIA's stack that use GDDR5X instead of GDDR5 don't perform quite as well. That means that the GTX 1080 prices have yet to go up. So if you're looking at a GTX 1070 close to $500, just get a GTX 1080. You're going to get better performance, and you're not going to pay the ridiculously inflated price that the 1070s are going for right now. That said, if you can't afford the 1080, then it's probably just going to be a wait-and-see game right now. You did get a nice return on your 470, but the flip side to that is all the prices are still high, and there's really no telling at this point when they're going to come back down. So I wish I had a better answer for you than that. But if you're really considering going up towards $500, maybe just grab a 1080. I think that'd be a good choice for you. Final question here from Gigzoltbotin. Simple question from Simple Man. Spaghetti or macaroni? I originally pulled this up because I thought it was going to be an easy answer, and then I thought about it, and I was like, well, when it comes to straight pasta, if I'm going to have, some marinara and some meat sauce or meatballs or something like that, I'm a purist. I like the spaghetti. I think it's what I grew up with, mom's spaghetti, right? However, I will say that when cheese is brought into the equation, macaroni and cheese, like, oh my God, I don't allow myself to eat it because it's so good and I eat too much of it. But I guess I know I'm giving two answers, but those are my answers. Usually spaghetti, macaroni when cheese comes into play. Anyway, guys, that's all for this episode of Probing Paul. I really hope that you have enjoyed it. Of course, leave me some questions for next month if you want down in the comment section down below. And again, thanks to all the people who have been down there answering people's questions, since it does take me about a month to get back to them every time I do this. I do have one last plug since I keep forgetting to publish this, but this is my P.O. Box. Paul's Hardware, P.O. Box 4325. If you guys want to send me something, we typically do mail time every few weeks on the live show. So send me some stuff. And I'm going to try to publish this a few more places because I keep it kind of hidden right now. But I'm going to start putting it in my description so people actually know where it is. Anyway, guys, thanks again for watching this video. We'll see you next time.